Hey there, Pirate Monkey Crew, and welcome to this sixth video on how to paint armor. And today we're going to be covering orange. So orange is a little bit of a tricky color, just like some of the other colors that we have worked on. Orange is most closely related to yellow in terms of the pigment strength. And so just like yellow, when we first start painting this tone, we have to put down a little bit of a brown, and that's what you can kind of see me doing here in my airbrush. So with this process today, we're going to start off with the airbrush to put down these initial glazes over our zenithal priming instead of using a brush. I thought we'd change it up here a little bit because we've done it quite a few times now with the brush, and it's been a little while since I have done it with an airbrush. So I'm really trying to show you here how thin I'm getting it. There's really not necessarily like a perfect consistency. It's essentially just the consistency that you're able to spray the best. Generally, I work between 30 and 40 psi, and essentially as long as I am able to spray out of the airbrush and it's not consistently clogging the airbrush, that's a good consistency. And it's actually going to change from pigment to pigment and from paint company to paint company. What we're using here is burnt umber and red oxide. These are pure pigments. I opted to use pure pigments in this case just because I wanted to kind of switch back one more time, just kind of changing it up every single one of these videos that we do. And then we are going to start to very, very slowly, very carefully spray this paint on here. You can see the color and the tone is just shifting just a little bit. Coming in from the top maybe a little bit more heavily, just because we don't want to cover up the shadows too much. The red oxide is fairly opaque and the burnt umber is a little bit more transparent, and so we do have to be kind of careful. Orange is generally kind of a brighter color to begin with though, so it's okay if the values are a little bit more high. Here we are spraying with the airbrush one more time, just like with a lot of these other videos. I hope you guys have really nailed this technique because you know it really is. It's a fantastic fast technique for just really getting that extra punch of color by spraying these whites over these zenithal primes and then these slight additions of color that we do at the beginning. Alright, and so here I am just very carefully, very slowly starting to add on this final little bit of orange, and here I'm using Pyrrole Orange from Golden Acrylics. This is a pure pigment orange, and so it's going to be very intense, probably more intense than a lot of the other oranges that you've used from paint companies because they tend not to be pure pigment. They have fillers, and you know they probably have white as well in order to make them cover a little bit better. And so when we're working, you know, with a pure pigment paint that has natural transparency, like we talked about in the previous video on purple, meaning that you can kind of see through the pigment as well as the medium. They're like little pieces of ground up crushed stained glass. It really lets that white that we put down at first really come through, and it makes the orange feel very bright and intense, and it actually can shift the color as well because the light has to pass through those layers, hit that white that's opaque, and then bounce up to the eye. And so it's just a really fantastic way to really punch things up. Here I'm using just a little bit of Daryllide yellow as well as titanium white mixed together, and essentially I'm just wanting to one more time kind of bring up these highlights. And essentially with orange there's a couple of ways that we can highlight it. One way is we mix in white, the other way is we mix in yellow, and the third way is we mix in a little bit of both. And this tends to warm up and brighten almost any color. This is kind of a trick that you can use with almost any color in order to increase the brightness. Yellow is naturally the brightest color on the color wheel, and blue is naturally the darkest. So it's a strategy that you can also use the other way around if you want. You can use blue and a little bit of black in order to essentially shade or shadow any color. It's essentially a way of sneaking in that warm, cold painting that we've been doing with this whole series with almost any colors that you're using. You can do this with skin tones as well. It's super helpful. And so just really thinking about the shapes, of course we have a really great underpainting from the airbrush, and so we're just very lightly going over that as well. It's really focusing on the shapes here. Just Space Marines are great because they're really just a big combination of, you know, either cylindrical or spherical shapes. There's very few planes on a Space Marine besides like his weapon and the knife that this one is holding. It looks like I'm just hitting some of these areas a second time just to really make sure that we get that punch that we are looking for. Now with the second layer, it should go a little bit faster than the previous one, essentially because we already have the area marketed out that we are going to be working within. And when we're working with layers like this, it should become faster and faster and faster because we're actually working within that area that's already been previously established. And so, once we get it established, it really takes a lot of the guesswork out, and you'll find that these subsequent layers just go really fast. As you can tell as well, the contrast is just really, really going crazy. It's looking very, very intense. And this is because I'm just slightly adding a little bit more white and a little bit more yellow gradually to that mix. And so here, of course, I have a very, very thin glaze of Pyrrole Orange yet again, and we're just very, very slowly going to glaze over this with a brush. With this one, I'm really taking it to a very nice high tabletop standard. Just like with all the previous videos, you can do the initial, the initial couple of steps of, getting the browns on there, doing the over priming of white and then doing the orange. That is gaming standard right there. That would look really, really nicely on its own. And doing these little extra things that I'm showing you in these later parts of the video are great because they just really take it to the next level. And my goal here really is just to show you, hey, with just a little bit of extra effort, you can really take this to that level. Just like with all of them, the first few steps maybe took 7 or so minutes. If I was doing batches, it would go a lot faster because I wouldn't have to be changing the paint and the brush. And you can just knock out a bunch of them with these techniques very, very quickly. So, and then here, what I'm doing is I'm just going through very, very quickly, and I am painting in a dark lining and just kind of essentially painting anything that's not orange, this darker color, so that I can see what the contrast looks like and really make decisions from that point forward. Just sped this up for you just so that we can get it going a little bit faster. Now that we have all of the dark lining done, you can really see the final effect of the orange. I really hope that you guys enjoyed this video tutorial on how to paint orange armor. So this one actually is not going to be the last one. I've had some requests from a couple of Patreons that they would really like to see how I paint white and how I paint black armor. So keep an eye out for those in the future. We're probably going to do a couple of other topics and then hop back into painting these specific colors. But for now, we have all of the primary and secondary colors covered for you guys. I really hope that you've enjoyed this series on how to paint this more gaming and up to high tabletop level stuff. And thank you again so much for your support, and we will see you next time. Happy painting. Bye.